They say karma has perfect timing. I never believed it until I heard this story. A black woman shopping for her daughter's graduation gift. A white police captain with a god complex and a hidden past. A stolen purse accusation that was really about something much darker. And a revelation so devastating, so perfectly orchestrated, that it proves sometimes the universe does keep score. What the officers found in that bag wasn't evidence of a crime. It was evidence of the captain's worst nightmare coming true. The autumn rain fell like whispered prayers against the windows of Luminescence Boutique, one of Chicago's most exclusive shopping destinations on the Magnificent Mile. Inside, soft jazz played through hidden speakers, mixing with the gentle rustle of silk and cashmere as elegant patrons browsed among racks of designer clothing that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The air smelled of expensive perfume and new leather, a scent that spoke of privilege and possibility. Maya Torres stood before a display of graduation dresses, her fingers tracing the delicate beadwork on a midnight blue gown that would look perfect on her daughter, Jasmine. After 17 years of sacrifice, of night classes and double shifts, of choosing between groceries and textbooks, Jasmine was about to become the first person in their family to graduate from college. Maya wanted this moment to be perfect. She wanted Jasmine to wear something that reflected not just beauty, but triumph, the kind that comes from rising above circumstances designed to keep you down. This one, Maya murmured to herself, lifting the dress carefully from its hanger. The price tag made her wince, $1,200, but she'd been saving for months. This wasn't extravagance. This was a mother's love made tangible, a symbol of everything they'd overcome together. Maya was 42 but looked younger, her brown skin smooth and glowing despite the stress of her demanding career. She wore her natural hair in an elegant twist, and her outfit, a tailored cream blazer over a silk blouse and well-fitted black slacks, spoke of professional success. Her designer purse, a structured leather bag in cognac brown, hung from her shoulder. She'd bought it 2 years ago to celebrate a major promotion, one of the few luxuries she allowed herself. But shift it did. Near the entrance, Catherine Wells, the boutique's owner, was greeting a woman who entered like she owned not just the store but the entire block. Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Chicago Police Department strode in wearing her dress uniform, her badge gleaming on her chest, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun that emphasized the sharp angles of her face. At 53, Mitchell had the look of someone who'd spent decades wielding authority like a weapon, her jaw set in permanent judgment, her pale blue eyes calculating and cold. She didn't notice when the store's energy shifted, but shift it did. Near the entrance, Catherine Wells, the boutique's owner, was greeting a woman who entered like she owned not just the store but the entire block. Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Chicago Police Department strode in wearing her dress uniform, her badge gleaming on her chest, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun that emphasized the sharp angles of her face. At 53, Mitchell had the look of someone who'd spent decades wielding authority like a weapon, her jaw set in permanent judgment, her pale blue eyes calculating and cold. She was here for the store's annual charity fundraiser planning meeting, but the moment she entered, her gaze swept the boutique with predatory precision, the way a hunter surveys a field for prey. And then she saw Maya. Something flickered across Mitchell's face. Recognition, perhaps, or maybe just the reflexive suspicion she'd cultivated over 30 years in law enforcement. She watched as Maya examined the dress, as Maya checked the price tag and nodded to herself with quiet determination. Mitchell's eyes narrowed. "Catherine," she said, her voice low but sharp enough to cut through the jazz music. "Who is that woman?" Catherine followed Mitchell's gaze and smiled warmly. "Oh, she's been in a few times this month. Lovely woman, very polite. I think she's shopping for. Have you been watching her?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Catherine's smile faltered. "Watching her? What do you mean?" Mitchell's hand moved to rest on her duty belt, a casual gesture that nonetheless conveyed threat. "She's been in here multiple times, you said. Has she purchased anything?" "Well, I'd have to check, but I don't think. Has anyone verified her payment methods? Checked her identification?" Catherine's discomfort grew visible. She'd owned Luminescence for 15 years and prided herself on treating every customer with respect, but she also understood the unspoken rules of survival in retail. Don't argue with the police, especially not with a captain. Especially not with Sarah Mitchell, whose reputation for ruthlessness was well known among Chicago's business community. Captain Mitchell, I'm sure there's no. I'll handle this, Mitchell said, already moving toward Maya with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no, who'd never faced consequences for her actions. Maya was studying the dress's return policy tag when she felt a presence behind her, too close, deliberately invasive. She turned and found herself face-to-face with the uniform, the badge, the embodiment of authority. "Excuse me, ma'am," Mitchell said, her voice dripping with false politeness that couldn't quite hide the contempt beneath. "I'm Captain Sarah Mitchell, Chicago PD. I'd like to have a word with you." Maya's expression remained neutral, but something flickered deep in her eyes, a ghost of old pain, a shadow of remembered trauma. She knew this stance. She'd been a black woman in America for 42 years. She knew exactly what was happening. "Of course, officer," Maya said, her voice steady and calm. "How can I help you?" Mitchell's jaw tightened at the use of officer instead of captain, a small defiance, perhaps deliberate, perhaps not. "I've been informed that you've been in this establishment multiple times recently without making any purchases. I'm going to need to see some identification." The boutique had gone quiet. Other customers had stopped browsing, their attention drawn to the confrontation unfolding near the evening wear section. Catherine stood frozen behind the counter, her face pale with distress. Maya carefully returned the dress to its rack, her movements deliberate and measured. "Am I being detained, or am I free to go?" "Don't be smart with me," Mitchell snapped, her thin veneer of professionalism cracking. "Answer the question. Why have you been coming to this store repeatedly?" "I've been shopping," Maya replied evenly. "Last time I checked, that wasn't a crime." "Shopping?" Mitchell's voice rose slightly. "Or casing the place? Planning what you're going to steal when you think no one's watching?" The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Several shoppers gasped. Catherine made a small sound of protest, but said nothing more. Maya's hands remained visible at her sides, her posture non-threatening despite the rage that must have been building in her chest. She'd lived this moment before, different store, different officer, but the same presumption of guilt, the same casual cruelty disguised as law enforcement. "Ma'am, I need to see your ID, and I need to inspect your bag," Mitchell continued, her hand now resting on her weapon, a gesture designed to intimidate, to remind everyone present who held the power here. "Do you have probable cause to search my belongings?" Maya asked quietly. "Have I been accused of a specific crime?" Mitchell's face flushed with anger. In her 3 decades of policing, she'd grown accustomed to immediate compliance, to fear and submission. This woman's calm resistance felt like disrespect, like challenge. "My probable cause is my 30 years of experience, and my instinct telling me something isn't right here," Mitchell said, stepping even closer, violating Maya's personal space. "Now, you can cooperate and show me what's in that expensive bag you're carrying, which I doubt you can actually afford, or we can do this the hard way." Maya looked directly into Mitchell's eyes, and for just a moment, something passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, or maybe just the meeting of two wills, two histories, two versions of justice that had never aligned and never would. "I know my rights," Maya said softly, "and I'm not consenting to any search." Mitchell's smile was thin and cruel. "We'll see about that." She pulled her radio from her belt and keyed the mic. "This is Captain Mitchell at Luminescence Boutique on Michigan Avenue. I need backup for a possible retail theft in progress. Subject is being uncooperative and refusing to comply with a lawful order." The lie was so casual, so practiced it rolled off her tongue like scripture. Maya didn't move, didn't protest, didn't give Mitchell any excuse to escalate further. She simply stood there, holding her ground with quiet dignity that seemed to enrage the captain even more. "You're making a mistake," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Mitchell laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "The only mistake being made here is yours, sweetheart." You picked the wrong store, the wrong day, and definitely the wrong officer. But as they stood there in that tense standoff, as the other shoppers watched in horror and fascination, as the rain continued to fall against the windows like tears, neither woman fully understood the depth of connection between them. The 17-year-old tragedy that linked their fates, the crime that had never been punished, the wound that had never healed. Not yet. But soon, very soon, everything would be revealed. The past was about to collide with the present with the force of divine judgment. And when it did, only one of them would walk out of that boutique with their life intact. The cage was gilded, yes, beautiful and expensive and seemingly safe. But a cage is still a cage. And for Captain Sarah Mitchell, the door was about to slam shut. The backup arrived within minutes. 3 squad cars, their lights painting the boutique's windows in alternating shades of blue and red, turning the upscale shopping destination into a crime scene. 6 officers entered in formation, hands on weapons, faces set in expressions of professional suspicion. They'd been told by their captain that they were responding to a theft in progress, possibly armed and dangerous. What they found was a well-dressed black woman standing perfectly still, her hands visible, her expression eerily calm, and their captain visibly agitated in a way that didn't match the scene. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Rodriguez," said a young Latino cop who looked uncomfortable with the entire situation. "Captain Mitchell says you're refusing to cooperate with an investigation. I'm going to need you to place your hands behind your back." Maya complied immediately, turning around and crossing her wrists behind her as she'd been taught to do, not in police academy, but in childhood, by a father who'd warned her that compliance didn't guarantee safety, but non-compliance guaranteed danger. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound that echoed through the silent boutique like a door slamming on justice. "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," Rodriguez began, his voice carrying the rehearsed quality of someone reciting words he'd said 1,000 times. "Anything you say." "I know my rights," Maya interrupted gently. "I'm a lawyer." Mitchell's head snapped up. "Oh, you're a lawyer? Funny, because most lawyers don't spend their afternoons casing expensive boutiques. I wasn't casing anything. I was shopping for my daughter's graduation dress." Maya's voice remained steady, but something flickered in her eyes. Pain, perhaps, or memory. "She's graduating from Northwestern next month. First in our family to finish college." For just a moment, the officers exchanged uncertain glances. This didn't fit the profile Mitchell had painted. But their captain was in charge, and questioning a superior officer's judgment was a career-ending move. "Search her bag," Mitchell ordered. "I want to know exactly what she's hiding in there." Rodriguez hesitated. "Captain, if she's an attorney, maybe we should." "Did I ask for your legal opinion, Officer Rodriguez?" Mitchell's voice could have frozen fire. "Search
the
bag." As Rodriguez reluctantly reached for Maya's purse, something in the boutique's atmosphere shifted. The other customers, who'd been paralyzed by shock and uncertainty, began to whisper among themselves. Several pulled out their phones and started recording. "I'm sorry." Catherine finally found her voice, stepping forward from behind the counter. "Captain Mitchell, I never said this woman did anything wrong. I never asked for police intervention. This woman has been nothing but polite every time she's—" "Step back, Catherine," Mitchell said without looking at her. "This is official police business now." But Catherine's words had landed. The officers, already uncomfortable, became even more uncertain. Officer Rodriguez held Maya's purse, but didn't open it, looking to his fellow officers for guidance that didn't come. Maya stood with her hands cuffed behind her back, and when she spoke, her voice carried a weight that commanded attention despite her vulnerable position. "Before you open that bag, Officer Rodriguez, I want you to know something. I want all of you to know something." She paused, her gaze moving across each officer's face. "My name is Maya Torres. 17 years ago, when I was 25 years old, I watched my father die on the side of Route 41 during what should have been a routine traffic stop." Mitchell's face went pale. Maya continued, her voice gaining strength. "His name was Marcus Torres. He was a high school teacher. He coached basketball. He volunteered at our church. He was driving home from a parent-teacher conference when he was pulled over for a broken taillight. The officer who pulled him over claimed he was aggressive, claimed he reached for something that might have been a weapon. But my father didn't have a weapon. He had his wallet in his hand, trying to get his license like he'd been told to do. The boutique had gone completely silent except for Maya's voice and the soft whisper of rain against the windows. The officer tasered him. When he fell, hitting his head on the pavement, the officer said he was resisting. They handcuffed him, just like I'm handcuffed now, and they didn't call for medical help for 8 minutes. 8 minutes while my father lay dying on the ground, his skull fractured, his brain bleeding. By the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. Rodriguez's hands trembled as he held the purse. The other officers had gone very still. The investigation concluded that the officer used appropriate force. The officer was never charged, never disciplined, never even suspended. She got a medal the next year for her service to the community. Her name, Maya's eyes locked on Mitchell's face, was Sarah Mitchell. The revelation detonated like a bomb in the confined space of the boutique. Mitchell's face had gone from pale to gray, her jaw working but no words emerging. The officers stared at their captain in horror, confusion, and dawning understanding. "You," Mitchell finally whispered, her voice strangled. "You're Marcus Torres's daughter." "Yes," Maya said simply. "I am. And for 17 years, I've lived with the memory of my father dying in handcuffs while a police officer stood over him, showing no mercy, no compassion, no humanity. I watched my mother fall apart from grief. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college and law school because the life insurance company ruled his death a suicide, said he brought it on himself by resisting arrest. I raised my daughter alone because her grandfather wasn't there to see her born, to teach her to ride a bike, to walk her to her first day of school." Mitchell's hand moved toward her weapon again, a reflexive gesture of someone whose entire worldview was crumbling. But Officer Rodriguez stepped between them, his face set. "Captain, step back," he said quietly. "This situation is... we need to de-escalate here." "She's playing you." Mitchell's voice was shrill now, desperate. "She's trying to manipulate the situation with some sob story that has nothing to do with..." "Nothing to do with what?" Maya's voice cut through Mitchell's protests like a blade. "Nothing to do with the fact that you saw a black woman in an expensive store and immediately assumed criminal intent? Nothing to do with the pattern of behavior that has defined your entire career, seeing people who look like me as threats, as criminals, as less than human." "I don't have to listen to this," Mitchell snarled. "Rodriguez, I gave you an order. Search that bag now, or I'll have your badge." But Rodriguez had already made his choice. He gently set the purse down on a nearby display table and began removing Maya's handcuffs. "Ma'am, I apologize. This stop doesn't meet the legal standard for detention. You're free to go." "The hell she is." Mitchell lunged forward, her hand actually reaching for her weapon now. "I'm placing her under arrest for..." "For what?" Another voice, sharp and authoritative, cut through the chaos. Everyone turned to see a woman in her 60s entering the boutique, Diane Chen, the assistant state's attorney for Cook County, who'd been shopping in a neighboring store and heard the commotion. She'd also been recording the entire confrontation from the boutique's entrance for the past 5 minutes. "Captain Mitchell," Chen continued, holding up her phone, "I strongly suggest you step away from Ms. Torres before you add assault with a deadly weapon to the civil rights violations I've just witnessed." Mitchell froze, her face contorted with rage and something else. Fear, perhaps, or the dawning realization that the careful structure of her career, built on 3 decades of unchecked authority, was crumbling around her. Maya rubbed her wrists where the handcuffs had left red marks, her eyes never leaving Mitchell's face. "Officer Rodriguez did the right thing. But you, Captain Mitchell, just made the same mistake you made 17 years ago. You saw someone you thought was powerless, someone you thought you could hurt without consequence, someone who couldn't fight back." Maya reached for her purse with steady hands. The officers tensed, but she moved with deliberate slowness, unzipping the bag and reaching inside. "You want to know what's in my purse, Captain? You want to see what I've been hiding?" She pulled out a leather wallet and flipped it open. The federal badge gleamed under the boutique's elegant lighting, polished gold, official, undeniable. "My name is Maya Torres," she said, her voice now carrying the full weight of authority and justice long delayed.
If you are curious to know what happens next, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a concluding part of this story. Tell us in the comment section where you are watching from. We would like to send you a shout out.